Typically, when you ask a mountain climber, why do you want to climb the mountain? The answer is because it's there. So that balance is one of the hardest things, but it's also one of the biggest things that you have to prioritize in life, because your time spent with family or time spent hiking or climbing a mountain is the time that you need so that you can really perform well when you're back at work. And I've been fortunate in both my businesses to have really good co-founders that we are all able to kind of balance each other's skill sets out and also give each other the opportunity to take some time off and not have to work, 18-hour days to make the business successful. So that is also like in an entrepreneurial journey, it's a highly recommended thing is have a co-founder, at least one, if not more than one. 3 is an ideal number. In tech circles, they say you should have a hacker, a hustler, and a visionary. It's always a good idea for a founder to do their first few sales themselves before hiring a salesperson, because you can understand what it takes, what kind of objections people have. So you understand the whole sales process.
Yeah.
And then bringing a person is almost like you're giving somebody a process and saying, go execute that.
Yeah.
But that process has to be defined upfront, just like you said.
Welcome to Events Demystified podcast, where we explore and demystify the world of in-person, virtual, hybrid event AV production and technology by sharing insightful tips, tricks and tactics to make your events a success. This podcast is brought to you by Tree Fan Events, a woman-owned boutique event production agency. And your host is 𝐂𝐚𝐻𝐿𝐻𝐿, a technical event planner and producer with almost 2 decades of hands-on technical experience in event production.
All right. Welcome back, friends, to another exciting episode of the Events Demystified podcast, your one-stop shop for tangible technical and planning advice for anyone in the events industry with a side of AI. This season, it's all about the Eventful AI and how it has impacted our lives, and it will moving forward. That's for certain. This podcast is sponsored by Tree Fan Events, a woman-owned and operated boutique event production agency. And your host is 𝐂𝐚𝐻𝐿𝐻𝐿, as in moi. And today I'm trying to stay awake. I was just telling my guests that it's one of those super downcasted days and just keeping my eyes wide open so I don't I'm half asleep. It's going to be a challenge. So we'll see how this goes. But enough about me. Let's get into our conversation with our featured guest today. And today I have the pleasure to interview Vikram Chalana, CEO of pictory.ai, and he's joining us from Seattle. Vikram is a serial entrepreneur and a total brainiac with a PhD in bioengineering. You know what? Another fun fact that I thought was super interesting about Vikram, he has scaled Mount Kilimanjaro, and I want to hear all about that. So if you're wondering how to conquer the event industry's mountainous challenges, well, guess what? He's going to be our go-to guy. So without further ado, let's welcome our guest in and have this amazing conversation. Welcome to the show, Vikram. I mean, that right there, climbing Mountain Kilimanjaro, that sounds like a crazy fit. Let's start with that. And then we're going to go into your journey, what got you to where you are today, and maybe some of the challenges you had to overcome along the way.
Absolutely. Hey, it's a pleasure to be here, Anka, and to have this conversation with you. So Kilimanjaro, I think I just learned a lot of business lessons climbing the mountain. It's high, it's intense. It's 19,000 feet, highest mountain in Africa. And it takes about 7 days to get up the route that we took. Wow. And 2 days to come down, or about a day and a half to come down. But it was intense. The altitude is very high. You can't breathe. And so I learned about this concept of acclimatization. It's super important in mountain climbing, but it's also important in business and in life in general, because you can't go up until you get used to a certain level of altitude. And then you can go to the next level and then perhaps acclimatize again to the next level. So that was my big insight from climbing this, is acclimatization. And as I talk about my company and kind of this insane growth that we've seen in the last year or so, I felt more and more need to acclimatize before I can take the next step and go to the next level.
I knew I'm going to like you because I take so many notes in my workout routines and apply, from my fitness journey to my business. And it's kind of like this constant parallel. I'm like working out my body, but my mind like keeps going, right? And I find so many different like tidbits of like inspiration just when I do that. So I can't imagine you climbing this mountain. And I mean, Mount Rainier is a tall mountain, right, in the Pacific Northwest. This is another kind of mountain altogether. So taking on this challenge, like first off, what got you to want to do it in the first place? And then let's break it down to how you were drawing parallels, as you just mentioned, to your business, to your growth, to what's going on right now in your journey as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so typically when you ask a mountain climber, why do you want to climb the mountain? The answer is because it's there. So about 10 years ago, I had visited Tanzania with my family. We went to some safari and sightseeing, and we landed at the Kilimanjaro airport, and I saw the mountain, and I was like, yes,
This mountain.
that I want to do. Because Mount Rainier, even though it's in my backyard, it's actually a technical climb because you have to go on ice and you have to be roped together, and it's quite dangerous. But this one, thanks to global warming, there's no snow. There's some big glaciers on the top, but you don't have to walk on those glaciers. You just go walk on snowless peak, and it's not technical, and you can do it. All you have to do is train for it. So that was the inspiration was because it was there. And to some degree, even building a business has been about the opportunity was there, and therefore I wanted to do it. The preparation that's needed is actually one of the critical things in climbing a mountain as well as in building a business. It's your training, your background, all the things that you have to do in advance of actually going to the journey. Although you can train along the way and you can learn things along the way, which is how a lot of people do start businesses. The other thing I learned is about the importance of the team that you go with, because if you want to keep together and go as a team, you have to
adjust.
You have to adjust, exactly. And you would basically be slowed down. Your speed will be the speed of the slowest person on your team.
Yeah.
So either you go because you're a group of friends and you have to go, but in a business that may not work all the time, in that you can't always be slowed down. So there's a bunch of lessons like that about preparation, about team, about this acclimatization, as I was talking about, that I drew as we were climbing. And then attitude, more so than altitude.
Right.
Attitude about the climbing is super important, because
your mental fitness, basically.
Your mental fitness, your level of excitement about doing it, it can make anything happen. And that's the other thing I learned. And
I love hiking. I've climbed probably the highest, probably like 12,000 feet as the highest peak. And one of the things that for me really works well is to, in a way, visualize myself on top of the mountain, even as I'm like climbing it. And I know that there's like a long ways to get to that top, right? But as I'm doing it, like even if it's challenging and it's long and it's one step in front of the other for many miles in no end, and especially if it's also at an incline, it's hard. You have all those steps, they're just like next one and next one. But then visually imagining what that's going to be like when you're on top of it, that I feel like helps that journey to make it easier, to make it bearable, right? So how did we get to Pictory? Like, it sounds like this wasn't your first enterprise. How did you get here, and why Pictory?
The reason we started Pictory, so in my previous
Am I saying it wrong? Like I basically said it 100 times the wrong way?
Pictory as opposed to yeah.
All right. Note to self.
And that's okay. That's all right. Picture story. That's kind of where we got it from. And the idea was when I was building my previous company, we had about 350 people in that company towards the end. And one of the things I realized was content has just exploded over the last like 10 years. People used to write blogs and would make a lot of, hey, just writing blogs. And then written content shifted to images, and images shifted to videos. And then everybody wanted videos. And video making in an organization is such a skilled and a specialized craft that only a handful of people, like in our 350 person company, we had one person who was enabled to do videos. She had the big Mac, and everybody would be lining in front of her office and trying to get help with videos. And that I realized, just looking at that, video making is going to be the future. More and more people need to be enabled to make videos. And the vision was, it should be part of an office like tool set. Like, you have Word and Excel and PowerPoint, and there should be a video making tool right next to it. And it hadn't happened yet. The tool, still the biggest tool for video is Adobe Premiere, and most people
Right.
use that. But it's hard.
Or
The
Final
skill,
Cut Pro, and
Final
it
Cut,
takes
yeah.
some memory and some beefiness in your computer capacity to be able to edit some of those super large files.
And not just that, like you need skill sets. You need to
Yes.
learn how to use that. And sometimes it can be several months. The learning curve is steep. So we wanted to leverage AI. We really wanted to make it easy for anyone to become a video editor and do it on the cloud. So you don't need your heavy infrastructure. And that was kind of the vision. And we saw what Canva was doing. So I'm sure you're familiar with Canva. We saw what
Yeah.
Canva was doing.
I mean, this
for
overlay,
design.
beautiful overlay, is done by Canva, as you can
Yeah,
tell.
it's perfect. And Canva makes it easy for anyone to become a designer. And that's what we wanted to do, is like be the Canva for video. I want to make anyone into a videographer if possible. And
So
that's the
tell me,
journey.
how does that compare to like CapCut, right? Like that's one tool that I feel like a lot of people on Instagram and TikTok use a whole lot just because it's easy, right? It's one app, you just upload some video. I love when it does the auto cut for you, so you don't have to think about like cutting your videos, which is a headache in itself.
Yeah, so this is using a lot of AI. We're using a lot of AI, and we're trying to do it more for professional uses as opposed to TikTok type scenarios. And the two main use cases that we have for Pictory are, one is you can take that longer form video, like your event recording, your recording of this podcast, and put it into Pictory, and it'll create a summary for you, like a 2-minute summary or a 1-minute summary from a 40-minute or a 50-minute long webinar. And you can use that to market your event, your webinar. So that's one use case. The second use case is we have this idea of converting text to video.
Right.
So you can start with a piece of script like that you've written, or a blog that you've written, and you can convert that to a video with Pictory. So the thing we remembered again was that, a lot of people are good at writing, good at creating content, written content, and you already are sitting on a lot of written content, most organizations. So can we leverage AI to help convert that written content into videos?
I love that you've, in a way, seen the future, years ago, and now you're basically working at shaping it. So let's move from how you got here to what's here now and what's next, especially when AI is merging so seamlessly into the event marketing sphere. So talking about that, I'm curious, when you take this product and you're trying to marry AI and event marketing, kind of like Jay-Z and Beyonce of the tech world right now, how can AI actually be used for pre-marketing and post-marketing in the event industry, since we're in this, space?
Yeah, so the thought that I had was, let's start with the post-marketing first. And we do have a lot of customers doing this already, that you have a recorded event that's usually a video file.
Right.
It's a long video, and you need to edit it and create
some snippets. Exactly.
Create some snippets from it. Exactly. So both of those basic editing, like removing gaps and silences and filler words, that's just like default functionality. But then you can create multiple snippets, say a vertical video from this horizontal video that you can post on TikTok or Instagram, and automatically find the most interesting parts of that video to say, hey, okay, this is a great snippet, or summarize it. That's the other piece that we see some of these things, because you'll record a whole thing, but you say, I want a 2-minute summary of it, and it'll find the most interesting segments, stitch it together, and give you a 2-minute summary of it.
So how do you train it to get to that point? Because I've worked, for example, with another product that now helps support some of the snippets that are created for the podcast itself. And I come from like literally content editing every single one of my video to the point where I would cut the most important parts of the conversation because I listen to the whole conversation. And that takes a lot of time, right? Like I would go in like an editor and just listen to the parts that made sense. Now AI is doing that for me. And honestly, I'm not mad about it because it's saving so much time, right? So I'm curious, like, how do you train it? Because in the beginning, as I'm working with this one product, it was hard. Like I wasn't happy about the output. It's like, okay, I think I'm going to go back to what I was doing because it's not giving me what I'm looking for.
Yeah, so we actually did what you were doing manually. We actually had a team of annotators who did that, who listened to the whole podcast. And for hundreds and thousands of videos, we actually manually identified the most interesting parts. But we use transcription, of course, so because this is all spoken word, so you can read through it and you can identify the most interesting sections. And then we use that as a training data. and we put that in an LLM, and we said, okay, we fine-tuned a GPT-3 model and say, okay, here's what defines the most interesting pieces. Now go and do it for new podcasts. And that's how the training happened. So it was on a lot of people, a lot of time, a lot of videos that we looked at and did that. It's still never perfect. It's not perfect. So we give you an ability to make changes to it very easily. So we'll just
Absolutely.
we'll highlight those sections that the AI picked out. And then if you don't like the highlights, you can just simply change that and say, I want this part and I want this and this instead of this. And anytime you do that, that actually improves, that adds to our training data, and the next iteration gets better.
Well, I love how, we started with post-marketing, because you're right. Like, there's so many event content, especially post-event recordings of speakers and keynotes and workshops and all of this content, especially since, say, let's not even go before 2020 pandemic, when we all sort of like switched to virtual, and then we created all this catalogs of video content that exists, right, somewhere. And one of the biggest challenge for event organizers, especially if you're not necessarily a video editor yourself, you're not a content creator, you just want to, get some quality marketing materials so you can promote your next event. So for them, software like this is a game changer, because now they can create some of those teasers and trailers and all the captivating visuals that make that future event irresistible. And it's all about visuals. You're right. Like, I was just in a meeting with someone earlier today, and they were trying to explain something to me over the phone. And I was like, why aren't we doing this on a Zoom call so you can share screen and show me what you're talking about? Because I don't learn by hearing it. I actually learn it by like seeing it, right? So a lot of us, we all identify with that. We've been sort of preconditioned to this new way of learning, of capturing information and retaining it. So that's a fantastic tool. Now, moving it to the pre-marketing stage, like, how do we use this for that part of the event cycle?
Yeah, so the event hasn't happened yet, but usually you'll have a text description of what the event is about.
I'm curious how that works. Like, paint the picture for me.
Yeah, so you start with text, and what we do is you put that text into Pictory, and Pictory basically will analyze the text. We have a huge B-roll library. So it'll find the best matching B-rolls for all your text and stitch it together in a form of a story. And then you can add your own voiceover if you want, or you can we have a lot of good text-to-speech voices. You can add any of those text-to-speech voices to narrate the description.
Can you import your own B-roll if you say you already have some content that you want to use that's very branded to whatever it is that you're trying to create?
Absolutely. And you can use a combination of the existing B-roll or your own B-roll, and you can combine it all together. And it makes it really easy. That it's like in a matter of minutes, you can create a video starting from a small piece of text.
I love that.
Yeah, that's a great pre-event promotion that you can use.
So this is basically redefining the marketing playbook in terms of event visuals, right?
To some degree, yeah. I mean, video, I think, is going to be important regardless in the future. So both pre-marketing or pre-event or post-event, video is going to be the key. Everybody's gravitating towards that now.
For sure. So obviously AI is been impacting video production workflows in ways that we didn't even think was possible before. Can you elaborate more on the now and the possible future scenarios of what this might shape into?
So let's talk about this text to video pieces, right? So imagine very soon we're going to have a capability to clone your voice. So you can train in your own voice, and the computer will talk like you. You've already seen some of those things are possible, but it's now possible with only like 2 or 3 minutes of your own voice recording, and the AI can clone your voice. So that's one part. But now you can imagine that it can even clone your avatar, your face.
So you're saying that I could send a podcast host in my liking to actually record my future podcast episodes in the near future?
Potentially. Although, like, there is still going to be a while before it can capture all the natural expressions and everything that we do. But I can totally see that in the future that it's possible to do. Right now, I think still it's a little bit in the uncanny valley. It feels strange. You've probably seen those avatar videos.
Yeah.
But I don't, like, in our lifetime, it's going to be much more realistic with multiple characters, even having a conversation.
I would like to have an alter ego version of myself, like argue with myself on video, just see what happens.
Wouldn't that be cool? Yeah.
But I think we're definitely taking it to a different kind of podcast at that point, because it'd be like, what is this thing? But it'll be interesting. I'm definitely super excited what's coming, and staying on top of things. I think it's important, just so you're not taken completely by surprise when things change so much that you just feel overwhelmed by everything that's happened. So like, if you wake up in a year from now and you were living under a rock or something, you might be like, what just happened? What did I miss? Right? So in the video production sphere, where you're basically right now building this product, I'm curious, what do you see happening aside from the text to image, text to video? Anything else that you think might be changing the way we do video and we create not just those snippets? Because this is easy. That's the low-lying fruit, right? Like immense productions, like we're talking about the video and broadcast and filming and all the things.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are changing already that's happening. There's a company called Runway. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're doing a lot in making this video production, high-end video production, like Hollywood type production, much easier. And they're targeting more the designers who are already Adobe Premiere users, and background removal, putting your face in some other character's face. There's like a whole bunch of things that are happening. I don't even know what the capabilities that already exist are for higher end of the market. Where we are trying to play is kind of more on people who never do video, and we are trying to make it easy for them to create videos and edit videos. And even that will have a lot of benefit from AI, and as we're already seeing, this whole area is going to be transformed very soon, very quickly.
Yeah, it's like we're stepping out of the analog age and strapping ourselves into a rocket ship headed straight for the intergalactic future. All thanks to AI. But let's hit pause for a second here on this tech talk, right? And as much as marvelous technology is, the heart and soul of any great venture is the people, right? So I would love to shift gears a little bit from the mechanics of AI in video production to the human element and tap into your wealth of experience in building companies. I'm talking about culture, hiring, and what makes a team go from a good team to drop the mic type of extraordinary team. As you mentioned in your climb, you were thinking about how important having people around you, your team around you, to support this journey. So I'm curious, when you're looking at that as a builder of companies, and you've built a few stellar ones, what are some golden nuggets that you can share with our audience about maybe hiring and fostering a great culture?
Yeah, I think that is the most important thing, because great things can be done by a team of motivated people who work together really well. But the culture is so important, and the team culture. So there are some things that I've learned along the way that are really critical for culture. And one of those things is actually just a single word, is respect. And if the team has respect for each other, it really shows and it really makes a difference, and they can do a lot of great things together. So that's one big thing. The other big thing that I found is an appetite for learning, curiosity. Anything is possible if you're curious and you have that attitude of respect towards your teammate. And like, people often will say, hey, experience is a really important thing. So you have to get a skill set, and you cannot doubt experience, but it's sometimes inexperience is as valuable in bringing a person into your culture, because it has two advantages. One advantage is the person with no experience in a field doesn't know what's impossible. They don't know the upper bound of this. And the second is they approach everything with this great deal of curiosity that I want to learn this. I don't know this field. So those are some of the nuggets that I've learned along the way about building a team with a great culture and almost all the time, culture trumps strategy every time. Because if you build a great team, you put them in the bus. There's some examples that you've probably heard about. Put a great team on the bus and they'll figure out where the bus is going, and you can accomplish. And I saw that during our climb as well, is, if you have respect for your team, for your fellow climbers, you help each other out and you can accomplish amazing things.
And another thing that you mentioned, actually, that I think it's important, because I've been part of hiring quite a few team members for not just my company, but also other companies that I used to work for before. for. And we would always say, sometimes even if you don't have the right level of skill set that we're looking for, we will train for it if you have the right attitude. It's like you said, attitude over altitude, right?
Yes.
So you might not be all the way up here in your skill set and experience, but if you have the right attitude and you're curious and you want to learn and you have the motivation to want to do that, then we'll train for it.
Yeah.
You don't have to beg me because I will do it, but you have to show that you want to, right? I don't want to waste my time if you're just like, okay, well, maybe I want to find out more, and maybe I'm curious about this, right? So it all goes into the attitude as well. Like if you're a team member, if you're curious, if you're really hungry to learn more, and you can go far, like in so many different areas. And I love the idea of like not necessarily being the most knowledgeable in your field, so you can bring a different perspective to the team. Now, not all team members should be like lacking knowledge, because then I don't know what we're doing here.
Yeah. No, that's not ideal either. That mindset, though, is one of the most important things. Having a growth mindset, as you're saying, that curiosity and attitude, that's one of the most important things. And another, as a leader, one of the other important things that I feel goes a long way in building a good culture is transparency and openness. So be very open about, here's the goals we're trying to accomplish, here are the numbers. Like we both at all my businesses, I've kept like numbers are the open book, and that way good and bad people see everything.
Well, that comes with a level of liability and risk, though. How do you navigate that?
There is a little bit of that, your competitors could know about your numbers and all that stuff. But I mean, I haven't been running publicly traded companies, so it's not been an issue ever. But yeah, if you're running a big company that is traded on the Wall Street, you
probably want to be a little bit more secretive about that. Which we see all the time that's happening. So let me ask you one more thing on this subject before we move on to our next question. How do you motivate, or how do you bring onto your team people that are motivated and loyal to the cause, to whatever it is that you want to build? Like, how do you motivate those people to stay and build with you, whatever the vision is?
Yeah, I think all of these things that we talked about, the respect and the openness and the transparency, all of that helps. I've had zero attrition so far at my company. It's been 4 years and we haven't lost a single person that we didn't want to lose. And also it helps if you're a growing company, because people get excited about growth and seeing new people and doing new things all the time. People get motivated by that a lot, especially in technology. That if you hire curious people, they want to do new things all the time. They want to see growth in their personal lives. So those are ways to retain people and all of those.
So it almost sounds like there's like this symbiotic relationship between cutting edge technology and soul satisfying culture is where like all the magic happens.
To some degree, yeah. But I think you can have a great culture in a different company too, which may not be doing cutting edge work, but you can make it interesting. You can gamify things. It's just going to be slightly different.
All right. So before we dig deeper into how AI is creating waves into the fabric of successful venture, let's just take a quick break to acknowledge our podcast sponsor. And we'll be right back for our next segment. Don't go anywhere. We'll unpack more about the actual execution, scaling, and tying all of those teams together that we just started talking about. So if you need to grab a refill of whatever you've got going on, coffee, kombucha, whatever tickles your fancy, go ahead and do that. But do not disappear. Come back and we will be right back in a moment's time. Before we move any further, I wanted to give a quick shout out to our main sponsor, Trifan Events, which is a boutique event planning and production agency that will come alongside you, offering personalized event planning and technical support, strategic event design, production and technology management, and flawless execution for live, virtual, and hybrid events. The team at Trifan Events is passionate about planning and producing event experiences that get people involved with true moments of interaction, engagement, and co-creation, while offering white glove treatment throughout the entire planning process, enabling you to reach your event goals with the use of creativity, production tools, and event technology. To find out how Trifan Events can plan and produce your event become memorable, go to trifanevents.com. Welcome back, friends. If you're just joining us, we have Vikram Chalana, CEO of pictory.ai, an engineer turned entrepreneur with experience and expertise in building technology companies, particularly technology leveraging data and AI. Now, let's get back to the nitty-gritty of AI and company culture with you, Vikram. You've successfully founded and scaled companies. What role has AI played in making your ventures so successful?
AI these days, it's everywhere. It's in all
Yes.
aspects of the business. Yeah. So not just like AI is a core to our product and what our customers can do, but we use AI in other things like we are a product-led growth company, so we have a lot of people who sign up for our platform, and we use AI to identify the people who are, for example, most likely to buy our platform, so our salespeople can reach out to them. So there's AI and data analytics used in our sales and marketing effort. We use videos and we use AI-based writing, and we use all that stuff for our own content marketing purposes. So we're doing with the Pictory, we're doing AI all the time. And even in my previous company, that was all about data and transferring data from one system to another. And again, we were using AI for analyzing your logs and your most interesting things that are happening within your data. But then we were also using AI for our internal business as well, where we were using it to create sales opportunity pipeline. And because salespeople are likely to predict things one way, they can either be too aggressive or too shy about predicting their opportunities. But AI can help bridge that gap between the most shy and the most optimistic salespeople and create realistic opportunity pipelines. So we were using that for opportunity, kind of the pipeline planning and all that. So it's been everywhere, internal use, external use, and it's kind of to some degree been a story of my career.
Well, it sounds like it's some kind of a blend of strategy, technology, and let's not forget the human touch. You can't just like sprinkle some AI fairy dust and expect miracles, right? So you have to have some kind of a strategy behind all of this, even prior to AI. Now that we have it, it's kind of like enhancing some of the processes. And I suppose that you're gonna, need to have some processes in place, especially when you're growing at that rate, because otherwise, how do you onboard all these people and get them to do the things that they need to do? Like I was onboarding a few different people just this over the summer. And that's when I realized that I need to work on my processes some more. Because it's not easy if you have holes in some of those processes, right? You realize that then they will not execute based on what you expect them to. So you got to go back to the drawing map and figure out what's broken and fix it, right? So how have you been able to do that in a successful manner?
Yeah, so before you automate anything, you have to be able to do it manually. And that's kind of what the learning is in this. And the example that you're giving is actually really good because, of course, early on in a business, you're not going to have thousands of leads and you don't know what sales process to follow. So in the beginning, you do things that may not scale later on, but you learn the right process of doing it and you have to manually do it so you can figure it out. And it's hard. It's hard because you have to do everything in the business, right? And when you're a small company, you don't have enough people. But it's always a good opportunity. And this is kind of a more of a founding lesson, company founding lesson, is it's always a good idea for a founder to do their first few sales themselves before hiring a salesperson, because you can understand what it takes, what kind of objections people have. So you understand the whole sales process.
Yeah.
And then you can, bringing a person is almost like you're giving somebody a process and saying, go execute that.
Yeah.
But that process has to be defined upfront, just like you said.
Yeah,
So
and tested in some ways, so that you
Yes.
know, okay, this will work. Like I'm not just sending you out to the wolves.
Yes, exactly. And this has been done, like I've had to do this many times. Like I'm not a marketing person, but initial marketing I had to do. I had to figure out all the Google ads and Facebook ads and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Then we can come bring it to a scale that you can bring a marketing person to do it, or selling, or whatever else it is.
Absolutely. Well, it sounds like, you've definitely succeeded at creating those processes in a way that supports the growth for where you're at in your journey. So now that we sort of like share some of the behind the scenes of what that looks like. I would love to just switch gears for a moment. And while, we've been sort of like focused on this digital landscape and the endless universe of what happens in video creation and pre-event, post-event, which I love all of those ideas of creating content that actually people will consume. Because at this point, I think we're also very much preconditioned to short video content. And I mean, even when YouTube came up with those 1 minute, I forgot what they call them, shorts. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like they're more successful than all the other longer videos. That's not to say that there's place for that. But, for people's capturing of attention for marketing purposes, that's what sells. That's what goes. So the idea of having, some type of a tool that really supports that in a way that it doesn't take a degree in video production for you to be able to do it, I think that's fantastic. Now, switching gears, as I said, into this awe-inspiring physical world of physical and mental conditioning that I get a feel that you really enjoy. And, you've done the climbing. I bet you started hiking first. And I'm curious, what other things do you do so that when you are, as an outdoor enthusiast, when you are out in the elements, how does that influence some of the decisions that you take as a business owner? How has that influenced your basically entrepreneurial journey so far?
Yeah, I think that balance is super important. I've been able to, how some of the best ideas come when you're not thinking about it. It just arrives. There's almost like an insight that happens. And being in the outdoors, being exposed to nature, seeing green everywhere, it really
It's like
helps.
It fuels your creativity.
And without you thinking about it, you're not explicitly going there to solve a problem. But the act of being outside in a beautiful area in nature, it creates the fuel that leads to insights. And I feel like that's really important. Some of the other things I practice, other than, yeah, you're right, hiking started before climbing Kilimanjaro, and we love hiking as our family. And we've always, like, since the kids were 2, we've been going out hiking with them every weekend, in the summer, at least in Seattle. Some of the other stuff I do is I practice a lot of meditation and mindfulness. And again, it gives you the same kind of a thing. It sets your brain, because you're not really, while you're doing a mindful meditation, you're not thinking about anything. You're just trying to be in the present. Thoughts will come, thoughts will go, but you're trying to not be swayed by the thoughts and just being in the present. And again, that centers you. That sets you up for that when you are in the situation of, okay, this is what I need to do. Insights just flow.
And how do you find the right balance between this love for, adventure and finding opportunities like taking 2 weeks off to go and climb Kilimanjaro and run a business? I feel like a lot of business owners struggle with the balance. And then you also have a family, and then you also have other responsibilities, right? That's not the only thing you do. How do you find the balance?
Yeah, and balance is one of the hardest things, but it's also one of the biggest things that you have to prioritize in life, because your balance, your time spent with family, or time spent hiking or climbing a mountain, is the time that you need so that you can really perform well when you're back at work. And I've been fortunate in both my businesses to have really good co-founders that we are all able to kind of balance each other's skill sets out, and also give each other the opportunity to take some time off and not have to work, 18-hour days to make the business successful. So that is also, like, in an entrepreneurial journey, it's a highly recommended thing, is have a co-founder, at least one, if not more than one. 3 is an ideal number. In tech circles, they say you should have a hacker, a hustler, and a visionary. So the hacker is your tech
That's the
guy.
perfect combination of talents.
Yeah, exactly. And usually one person can't be all 3. You can't be a hacker and a hustler and a visionary. So having at least 2, ideally 3, is a perfect combination. So yeah.
So where are you at on this scale? Do you have one co-founder or?
Yeah, I'm more of the visionary and the hustler.
And the hustler. So you're like 2 in 1, and then you have one more founder.
I have the hacker, and we have 3 co-founders. One is the hacker, he's our CTO, and I'm the hustler, and then the third one is the product visionary, and I'm the sales guy. So we kind of we do have a complete there.
I love it. Well, you're clearly doing something right and you're making time, prioritizing your mental and physical well-being, which is so important because I feel like we can easily fall prey to this idea of like constantly hustling and not giving ourselves time to recharge and restore and come up with fresh ideas, with new ideas, creative ideas. So especially even like in my field, events, and as event professionals, what we more often than not overlook is our own health because we're always on the go and we're always working on the next big event. But to do that well, like you said, we have to also dive deep into our mental and physical fitness so that we don't allow it to take a back seat. So there has to be some type of a balance to bridge that gap. So now that we kind of cover how you do that and how you create that perfect equilibrium, I guess, between mind, body, business, especially in an industry as yours, do you have any other tips that you might want to share maybe with some new founders, new people in their beginning of the journey as they're embracing? And I feel like there's been so many .ai, new enterprises starting just the last, I don't know, like year or so alone.
Yeah.
From your experience, from your wealth of experience, do you have anything that you'd like to share?
Yeah, a couple of things. And I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of new entrepreneurs as well. Just we have mentorship groups and stuff. And finding the right co-founder is one of the key lessons. But the
Where do you
second one,
find them? Do you go to match.com, founder match.com?
it's literally like that. You go to hackathons, you go to events. Events are a great place to meet, people, meetups that happen in your local area. And it's like a dating thing. You have to find a person with the right chemistry that resonates with you and they complement your skill set. But the other thing I love to say is, the products are not made in the lab. Like you could spend a huge amount of time in an office and try to come up with the right product with what your vision is. And products are really made in the market. So what that means is get it out there as soon as possible. Build a minimum viable product and get it out there. And this could be any kind of product. It could be your next event thing, add-on that you want to create. Create it, get it out there, test it in the market, refine it. And that's the best way to build products rather than people sometimes spend 3 years in the lab and just refine. That's not how great products are built. They're always built in the market.
Because it hasn't been tested to see you even have an audience or you have any feedback whatsoever if this works.
Exactly. And what people say, sometimes people will say they want something, but
that's not what they want.
No, exactly. Yeah, you've experienced that. I've experienced that many times. It's not what they want. And then you have to kind of build the right thing that they want. And so that iteration and the speed of iteration is really important. And these days with software, it's possible to do. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people and we already talked about some of these things, like people will let inexperience get in the way that I'm not experienced, I can't do this entrepreneurship journey or something. But again, sometimes the lack of experience is an asset. Go see if you can take advantage of that. Find the right co-founders, find a mentor, and then just get it out there. Just do it. I love the Nike slogan, just do it.
We all do, it's just getting it done. Sometimes
getting it done
becomes the challenge, right? Well, those are some awesome insights, Vikram. Thank you so much for demystifying the world of AI and entrepreneurship with us. Now, could you please let our audience know where they can connect with you if they have, questions, or maybe they just want to follow your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I hang out on LinkedIn the most. So you can find Vikram Chalana on LinkedIn. My email address is also very simple, vikram@pictory.ai. So feel free to reach out. I'd love to hear from all of you. Check out pictory.ai.
All right. Well, that's the call to action. So to keep the conversation going, do connect with Vikram and his rockstar AI journey. Check out, what they're going to do from here. We're going to have those links in the show notes as well. And for all of you that have stayed with us up until this moment, I'd like to thank you for joining us on this new journey into Eventful AI. Your continued support helps us bring invaluable perspectives to the light, like Vikram's. And I love that we actually touched even on confounding, tips and strategies, because that's important. Don't forget to subscribe, stay updated on future episodes featuring more brilliant minds from the event industry and the business industry. And you can find us on social media platforms where you can engage with the content, share your thoughts, and even, purpose some of those topics and maybe suggest future guests for our future shows. Until next time, keep pushing boundaries, keep innovating, and above all, keep crafting unforgettable event experience that leave a lasting legacy. Thank you, Vikram, for your time. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. What's the mountain that comes next after this Kilimanjaro?
I don't know, Anka. I haven't decided.
Well, whatever it is, the mountain that you're going to climb next, I hope it's going to be just as good as the last one. So
Yeah,
you
thank
have a wonderful rest of your day.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, Anka.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Events Demystified podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please take a moment to review it, rate it, and share it with other event professionals that could benefit from it. Connect with us on social at Events Demystified Podcast. We would love to hear from you and what you're up to. If you'd like to learn more about Tree Fan Event services and find out if we're a good fit in supporting your event, can we help your event be successful with a 20-minute free consultation? Link in the episode's notes. Thanks for tuning in.